A beautiful and a good afternoon. This is the Ambassador. With me, your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau. And today, our first story will start from Russia as Russia launched a devastating missile strike on the main children's hospital in Kiev on Monday, resulting in the deaths of at least 41 civilians and leaving over 170 injured. The daylight assault of the deadliest since the conflict began shattered windows, tearing apart buildings, and prompted desperate scenes of parents fleeing with their infants amidst the chaos. International condemnation swiftly followed the calls for urgent action to force and protect civilians and intensify support for Ukraine's defense against further Russian attacks. Here's the full report.
The assault unfolded with devastating impact as parents clutching their infants fled in panic while the hospital's windows shattered and debris filled the streets. President Volodymyr Zelensky, currently on his way to a NATO summit in Washington after a stop in Poland, expressed outrage putting the toll at 37 dead, including 3 children. He highlighted that over 100 buildings, including a maternity center, children's nurseries and residential areas, were damaged in the attack across multiple Ukrainian cities. The Ukrainian military reported that its air defenses successfully intercepted 30 out of the 38 missiles launched during the assault. However, the remaining strikes inflicted severe damage, highlighting the urgent need for enhanced air defense systems from Ukraine's Western allies. International reactions poured in swiftly, with US President Joe Biden condemning the attacks as a horrific reminder of Russia's brutality. Biden pledged additional measures to bolster Ukraine's defenses, while the United Nations Security Council scheduled an emergency meeting to address the escalating humanitarian crisis. The deadly assault on Kiev's children's hospital stands as a stark reminder of the devastating human cost of the ongoing conflict and the urgent need for international intervention to halt further bloodshed.
Well, quite devastating. Let us move on to Hurricane Beryl as it made a landfall, bringing with it powerful winds and the threat of dangerous flooding as residents are being urged to evacuate as the storm intensifies. The storm moved over land early this morning with the maximum sustained winds of 80 mph, with the residents having hunkered down, boarding up and evacuating the beach towns. Let's get the full report.
Hurricane Beryl intensified and became a hurricane once again before hitting the Texas coast near Matogada. The largest ports in Texas, including Corpus Christi, Houston, and Galveston, have suspended operation as the threat from Hurricane Beryl looms. Texas officials are warning coastal residents to prepare for possible flooding, heavy rain, and wind. Residents are being urged to take the threat from Hurricane Beryl seriously, with Houston Mayor John Whitmer emphasizing the need to be vigilant and not complacent.
Our complacency. We can't allow this storm to slip up on us. We've had notice of it. It's still very unpredictable, but I am surrounded with a professional team of city directors, first responders, probably the best team ever to be prepared for a storm like Beryl. We have total collaboration with every level of government. I'm going to yield in a moment to our two.
The storm has already caused devastation in the Caribbean, with at least 11 deaths reported. Scientists are attributing the increase in severe storms to warming sea temperatures due to climate change. The United Nations Weather and Climate Agency, who reported that Beryl developed into a Category 5 storm earlier than expected, highlighting the growing impact of climate change on hurricanes. Residents are advised to stay safe and follow evacuation orders to ensure their safety.
The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, is facing a critical challenge to its unity as Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have formally established a breakaway Confederation of Sahel States. ECOWAS Commission President Dr. Omar Ali Touré warned that this move risks a political isolation, financial losses, and disruption to regional security efforts. The departure of these 3 countries, which have faced military coups in recent years, could lead to the disintegration of 50-year-old ECOWAS bloc as the region grapples with dire security situation. Let's get the full report.
West Africa is embroiled in challenges as ECOWAS confronts disintegration. The region has become an arena for geopolitical rivalries with the withdrawal of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. ECOWAS President Dr. Omar Aliyu Touré acknowledged threats facing the region during the summit in Abuja. Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu praised the Nigerian Counter-Terrorism Center while warning against the spread of extremism and terrorism to coastal states. The absence of the three Sahel states, who have formed their own alliance, cast a shadow over the summit.
The region is still confronted with multiple interlocking threats, including existential ones. These include climatic and man-made crises, leading to terrorism and violent extremism and food insecurity.
Challenges, including terrorist activities and violent extremism, threatening to spread from the Sahel region towards the coastal states.
Meanwhile, the United States has withdrawn its troops from Niger with plans to exit a major drone base as the country aligns itself with Russia and its neighbors in the Sajan-Citon Central Sahel.
To completing a safe, orderly, and responsible withdrawal by September 15, 2024.
West Africa faces a critical juncture as regional instability and geopolitical rivalries threaten unity. The withdrawal of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger from ECOWAS has created a power vacuum filled by competing interests. This raises concerns about combating extremism and terrorism amidst the departure of international forces. ECOWAS must navigate complex issues while maintaining unity and addressing member states' needs. The future depends on leaders finding common ground to prioritize peace, security, and prosperity.
Moving on from ECOWAS today, let us look at the man heralding the new era in the UK politics. Who exactly is Keir Starmer? How did he become the biggest Labour leader in 2 decades? Well, I have a video for you. First of all, let us watch it together. Have you ever heard about Larry the Cat? Well, recently in the UK, it was settled. Larry the Cat has now a new roommate, and that is Keir Starmer. In case you did not know, Larry is the most famous cat in England. With the designation of the chief mouser of the 10 Downing Street, the cat has the same address, 10 Downing Street, for 14 years, now while 5 prime ministers have left. Now a 6th one is set to enter, and this is his story, that is Keir Starmer, who led his party to a landslide win. After results were out, he addressed a victory rally in London, and this is what he had to say. Listen in.
Change begins now. And it feels good, I have to be honest. 4.5 years of work changing the party. This is what it is for. A changed Labour Party, ready to serve our country, ready to restore Britain to the service of working people.
Change begins now. That is his message. We'll tell you what that change looks like. But first, let us look at the man heralding this new era in the UK politics. Who exactly is Keir Starmer? How did he become the Labour leader? How did he script Labour's biggest victory in 2 decades? Starmer was born in 1962 on the outskirts of London. His mother was a nurse, his father was a toolmaker. He had 3 siblings and one of them had learning difficulties. His mother too suffered from a rare disease, and this impacted his early life. His family was Labour at the core, which is why he was named after the party founding father, that is Keir Hardie. Starmer's upbringing was not privileged. The house grew up was quite cramped. Money was often tight. Regardless, Keir Starmer persevered. He started a state school. He studied at a state school, but 2 years after he joined the school, it became a private school. Now Starmer could not afford the fees, so he found it yet to relive the school. The local council sponsored him until he was 16. After that, he went to study law, first at the Leeds University and then at Oxford, which was the big deal for him. He was the first in his family to attend a college. During his time there, Keir Starmer was an active student in the politics, nothing major. In 1987, he finally became a lawyer, and he chose cases related to human rights. He defended the trade unions, he fought for the activists. He worked, and this work took him to the Caribbean and Africa, where he defended the death row inmates. So Keir Starmer is not a politician, but the pivot began in 2015. When he won from the safe Labour seat, that is in 2015. Here is the fun fact for you. Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak became MPs on the same day. And on 1 year later, he entered parliamentary. Starmer joined a rebellion. Labour lawmakers wanted to oust Jeremy Corbyn. The former Labour leader of the Starmer took part in it. That effort failed miserably, and Starmer ended up joining Corbyn's top team. He became the Labour Brexit spokesperson. That stint lasted until 2019. That's when the UK had its last general election, that is 2019. Labour suffered its worst defeat since 1935. So it was in full crisis mode. Jeremy Corbyn was on his way out, and Keir Starmer succeeded him. He became the leader of the Labour Party, and thus began his struggle. I say struggle because Labour leaders usually lose. This party has existed for 125 years, but it has had only 6 prime ministers. So six in more than a century. That is terrible statistics. The last Labour leader to win the mandate was Tony Blair. That was in 2005. So it has been quite some time for them to have a leader. Keir Starmer has had one mission, and it was to make Labour popular again. He made some more bold moves to achieve that. The party had a reputation of being the left wing. Starmer moved it to the electable center ground. He pardoned the concubines. He rooted out any form of anti-Semitism and tightened the economic policy and pitched pragmatism. He promised to put the country first, party second. However, no one doubted his Labour route. After all, he was the party's first working-class leader in decades. Of course, his critics disagree with this sentiment. They say that Starmer keeps flopping. That doesn't have a clear vision for the UK, but criticisms aside, what Starmer struggled with was his image. He was described as the button-up, even borderline boring. He did not have the charisma of his Tory counterparts. No big head, no hair, crazy antics. All Starmer is crazy about is football. But maybe that is part of his appeal. After years of flamboyant Tory rule, perhaps what people wanted was boring. So I get that too worked out very well for him. At 61, Keir Starmer will be the UK oldest prime minister in almost 50 years. We don't know what his term will look like, but we do know one thing for fact. That he'll do on Fridays. The UK Prime Minister will not work beyond 6 on Fridays. As he constantly said, it is time for him and his family. He has 2 children, and the Starmer we are talking about, he has 2 children, and he is a fan of football. We'll keep you more updated on his policies and what the UK new Prime Minister brings on board.
To the country, I would like to say first and foremost, I am sorry.
A Labour landslide being predicted by the catastrophe for the Labour Prime Minister in history.
What an amazing reception. We did it! I've just returned from Buckingham Palace, where I accepted an invitation from His Majesty the King to form the next government of this great nation.
That was UK Starmer for you. And now moving on, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in Moscow today for a pivotal two-day visit aimed at strengthening ties with Russia amidst complex geopolitical dynamics. This visit comes at a crucial juncture as India grapples with navigating its historically strong relations with Russia amidst the backdrop of Russia's ongoing conflict with Ukraine. Scheduled to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin, Prime Minister Modi's agenda is multifaceted, addressing the challenges posed by the Russia geopolitical isolation, bolstering trade ties with a peak at $65 billion this year, and managing India's evolving engagement with both Russia and its regional rival, China. Here's the full report.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has today arrived in Moscow for a two-day visit to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin as relations between the two powers face challenges due to Russia's war in Ukraine. This has complicated India's traditionally strong ties with Russia while also increasing its engagement with China, a major regional rival, even as trade between India and Russia is set to reach $65 billion this year, with India heavily reliant on Russian imports. As Prime Minister Modi meets with President Putin, all eyes will be on how he navigates this delicate diplomatic balancing act. With Russia's isolation from the West and deepening ties with China, the future of the India-Russia relationship hangs in the balance. Modi's visit will be closely watched by both his Western partners as well as regional rival China as he seeks to chart an independent course for India on the global stage.
And that international news brings us to our very first break. Next, we'll talk about NATO, which is celebrating its 75 years of collective defense. What are the developments and the challenges coming with these celebrations? And France now faces coalition puzzle with the after left-wing surge, while South Korea's Samsung workers are staging a 3-day strike. And why is this? We'll tell you more about it. While Uganda is being alleged to supporting M23 rebels, we'll tell you about the story while Biden refuses to drop out of the presidential race. He said, quote unquote, only God can make him quit. We have this and more lined up for you shortly after the break. Stories you can't afford to miss. Stay tuned with us.
And you're going to learn about modeling industry in Kenya. It's not only about beauty, it's beauty with brain.
I participated for Miss Udhiro Girls, that's 2018, and fortunately I was crowned the queen.
And maybe there's something that actually triggered you to join the modeling industry. You can just tell us.
What I encourage my fellow models is that when that time comes, just say something.
How is the rate of joining the agencies of the modeling?
The trainings we go each and every Sunday, and in between the trainings, we have gym sessions, we have swimming classes, we have photography. And yeah, my parents fully support me. If I'm going for any pageant, like the one I competed for, Miss National Youth Caucus Kenya, that was held in Nakuru early this year, they were there.
How do you maintain your health and wellness, physical? How do you maintain as a model?
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. You are still watching The Ambassador, GBS Global, and we are glad to have you join us today. Moving on to NATO. NATO celebrates 75 years of collective defense, having been created on April 4th, 1949. The Transatlantic Alliance growing from 12 founding members to 32 member countries, all working together to keep people safe. However, the upcoming NATO 75th Anniversary Summit in Washington, D.C. from July 9 to 11 faces significant challenges. Protests have erupted with activists chanting anti-war slogans and carrying pro-Palestine signs, criticizing NATO's aggression spreading across the world. Our next report tells you the story.
NATO celebrates 75 years of collective defense since its creation on 4 April 1949. The Transatlantic Alliance has grown from 12 founding members to 32 members countries, all working together to keep people safe. A community of allies bound together by common values of democracy, individual liberty, human rights, and the rule of law. NATO celebrates its anniversary on 4 April at NATO headquarters in Brussels and at the upcoming summit on 9 to 11 July in Washington, D.C., where its founding treaty was signed.
We're here because NATO is coming to, quote-unquote, celebrate its 75th anniversary. NATO is a force for war and imperialism, and we are against that. They support Israel in the war genocide against Gaza.
We're out here today, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, because we believe that at a time when 1 in 3 Washington, D.C. residents are homeless.
According to the local reports, the protest was organized by the Resist NATO Coalition and reportedly involved bodies such as the International League of People's Struggles, the Resist US-led war movement, and Bayern USA. Leaders of several activist groups, including former State Department official Anne Wright, spoke at the event.
No to NATO rally and demonstration because the United States militarism is spreading across the world. It's using up all the budget that we need in the United States.
The NATO summit began on Tuesday and continues until July 11. With leaders expected to focus on the Ukraine conflict among other issues, according to media reports. Kyiv is expected to be told it is too corrupt to join the alliance at the current time, where there is also expected to be opposition to the outgoing Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg's plan for a multi-year military funding package for Ukraine, what they see as a way to negate the impact of a potential Trump presidency.
France stands at a political crossroads as President Emmanuel Macron navigates the aftermath of a dramatic parliamentary election that has left the country with a hung parliament, marking a significant shift in its political landscape. The unexpectedly strong showing of the left-wing New Popular Front NFP has overturned the expectations and dashed Marine Le Pen's hopes for catapulting her far-right national rally RN into power. Listen for more.
Following Sunday's election, which saw NFP emerge as the largest bloc in the National Assembly with 182 seats, Macron faces the daunting task of forging a viable coalition government. His centrist alliance secured 168 seats, while Le Pen's RN and its allies clinched 143. These results, showcasing a fractured parliament with no clear majority, herald a period of intense political horse trading just ahead of the Paris Olympics. The election marked a significant setback for Le Pen, despite her party's increased share of the vote compared to previous elections. The RN had been poised for stronger showing according to the pre-election polls, but fell short of expectation as strategic withdrawals by other parties helped consolidate anti-RN votes. The NFP's electoral success has also raised questions about the feasibility of its ambitious agenda, which includes proposals to raise the minimum wage, roll back Macron's pension reforms, and implement price controls on essential goods, a platform viewed skeptically by financial markets due to its potential impact on France's fiscal stability. As France enters a phase of intense coalition negotiations, the outcomes will not only shape the country's immediate governance, but also have broader implications for its role within the European Union and global markets. With Macron's ability to drive policy now significantly constrained, and Le Pen's positioning herself for the 2027 presidential election, the next steps in France's political landscape are poised to be pivotal and closely watched both domestically and internationally.
Samsung electronic workers in South Korea have kicked off a 3-day strike demanding better pay, More leave and a fairer bonus system. The strike involves over 6,500 workers, primarily from manufacturing and product development units, representing more than 22% of the Samsung's 125,000 strong workforce in the country. The National Samsung Electronics Union, NSEU, which was as around 30,000 members, is leading the protest. They are seeking an extra day of annual leave, significant pay hikes for members who did not sign for the 2024 salary agreement, and changes to the bonus structure. Let's get the full report.
The National Samsung Electronics Union, which represents approximately 30,000 employees in South Korea's total workforce, is pushing for enhancements to the performance-based bonus structure and an extra day of annual leave. This strike, considered to be the biggest organized labor protest in the country's history, is planned to continue for 3 days, starting on July 8th and ending on July 10th. Despite this time frame, the union has indicated that additional strikes could take place if their demands are not addressed. The potential impact on the strike on production remains uncertain, with the company stating that previous labor actions have not had a notable impact on business operations. The union has only just begun to spread awareness among members about their rights, issues they need to focus on.
According to a United Nations report, Uganda has provided support for the M23 rebel group operating in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The report stated that Uganda had facilitated the transit of M23 rebels and the Rwandan forces in the DRC to fight alongside the M23 against the Congolese government forces. Uganda has denied the allegations, asserting that it respected the DRC borders and territorial integrity and only conducts cross-border operations with the consent of Kinshasa government. Ugandan officials have dismissed the UN report as an attempt to strain relations between Uganda and the DRC. The report.
Congo has been riven by conflict for decades. Uganda and Rwanda invaded in 1996 and 1998 for what they stated was defense against local military groups. Uganda is still conducting joint operations with Congolese troops against rebel Ugandan group. The Tutsi, led by M23 rebels, have been waging a fresh insurgency in Congo military Prague East since 2022. Ugandan troops were part of the regional force deployed in November 2022 to monitor a ceasefire with the M23. Congolese authorities called for the force to withdraw last year, saying it was ineffective. The UN group stated it had obtained evidence confirming active support M23 by officials from the military and military intelligence, with M23 leaders, including the Section Sultan Makenga, traveling to Uganda for meetings. Contacted by Reuters, Deputy Spokesperson of Uganda Armed Forces, Dio Akiki, said such reports falsely accuse the East Africa country's army when its relationship with the Congolese forces is at its best. The UN report said some 3,000 to 4,000 Rwandan soldiers were fighting the Congolese army alongside the M23. The Rwandan army de facto control and direction of M23 operation also renders Rwanda liable for the action of M23.
Now let us take a closer look on the United States elections, but first I have a question for you. What do you look for in a wise leader? Good morals, leadership, perhaps agility? Well, ask America, they will tell you all they want is a coherent president. Joe Biden is 81 years of age. He is the candidate of the Democratic Party. This November, he will go up against Donald Trump, and it doesn't look like an easy contest. Biden is fumbling his way through speeches. He's losing donors. The Democrats want him to step down, but the president remains defiant. Listen to what he had to say.
I convinced myself of two things. I'm the most qualified person to beat him, and I know how to get things done.
If you can be convinced that you cannot defeat Donald Trump, will you stand down?
It depends if the Lord Almighty comes out and tells me that, I might do that.
Only the Lord can make him quit. That's what Joe Biden says, but his party doesn't share the same emotions. Senior Democrats want him to step aside. They have told him this is to make a phone call. Reports suggest that they were quite explicit about it. They said he must go. And while this is happening in private, Democrat donors are making their displeasures public. They are pulling out funding, making, for example, take Abigail Disney, for example. She is an heiress of the Disney family fortune. She says that she will withhold donations if Biden does not step down. Other prominent donors also threaten the same, and this game can be a game changer because the U.S. elections are all about money. You could argue that all elections are mostly about money surrounded by this, but this one is especially so. You need funds to campaign, to mobilize voters, to hold rallies. Without funding campaigning, it is difficult. And Joe Biden knows that exactly. He's been in the game for long enough, yet he refuses to step down. Instead, he's cracking a joke about it. Listen in.
Folks, I know with every fiber of my being, I know I won't look like I'm 40 years old, but I've been around a little bit. I got my glasses in. Well, I tell you what, Dark Brandon's coming back. He's here. And guess what? The next 120 some days or so, they're going to get a real good look at who Donald Trump is. Folks, with your permission, I'm going to find out whether you have any ice cream. You know, isn't it really dull when you have a president who's known for two things? Ray-Ban sunglasses and chocolate chip ice cream.
Biden is trying to keep the mood light, but even he can't avoid the elephant in the room, and that is his age. Watch this.
At the cross, where I first saw the light and the burdens of my heart.
That was Biden seated in a trance at a church. Many were asking if he's fit enough to lead the Democrats. Well, Biden certainly thinks so himself. He was at a trance when he was told to stand up during a church gathering. But the U.S. president wrote a letter to the Democrats, a letter of reassurance where two things stand out. Biden says that he's running the race to the end and that he's committed to beating Donald Trump. So he thinks that he is the best candidate for the Democrats, but do the polls say the same? Let us look at the CNN poll. It looks at Biden versus Donald Trump matchup, 49% support for Trump and 43% support for Biden. So Trump is leading by 6 points here. Now let us look at another poll. It looks at the potential Kamala Harris-Donald Trump matchup. What if they were to contest against each other? 43%. Backup for Trump and 42% support for Kamala Harris. So it is clear a tie that which makes Biden's argument fall flat. He says that the only way he can beat Trump, but polls show that his vice president can do better than him, so he can be replaced. There are 190 days till the elections, and these are the possible scenarios. The first, this is that Biden steps aside himself, which is unlikely. But if pressure grows, the U.S. president will do it. If that happens, it should be a relatively easy because there will be a Democratic National Convention. Delegates will choose a nominee. The top candidates at this point include Vice President Kamala Harris and the California Governor Gavin Newsom. Whoever has more delegates becomes the Democratic nominee, which brings us to scenario number 2. Biden doesn't want to quit. What happens then? Can he be forced out? Well, it is difficult. It has never happened before in the U.S. politics, and the Democrats will have to use a lot of loopholes. Party delegates will have to revolt against Biden to force him to step aside, and they will have to choose a new nominee. Again, it sounds highly unlikely. So unless there is some sort of a miracle, it will most probably be a Trump-Biden match-up in the presidential election. And America is not very enthusiastic about it. Look at this comment by Lindsey Graham. He said, the senator of South Carolina, Graham says both candidates should take tests. both physical and cognitive. It says this is to show that they are capable to lead in the country. It tells you how far the U.S. can come. The two White House men, both 75 years of age and above, are threatening to battle it out in a golf course. It sounds like a comedy. But the reality is that America, this is what is happening in America right now. And that international news brings us to the end of our GBS Global. It's been a pleasure having you on board, joining us to the end. Here at the Ambassador, we continue to bring you the latest updates and the global developments as you keep it locked with us. I've been your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Ambassador tomorrow, same time, same place at 1 p.m. I wish you all the most beautiful and a wonderful afternoon. Stay safe.